Better late than never, right? Well, probably every video is going to be late, but then that's in line with my tendencies. Anyway, thanks for listening. If you're listening, I'm Matt Pinnell. I'm without my co-host Matt Marino, so this is just gonna be a solo upload. I had a couple things that I wanted to talk about. I've been thinking of lately regarding Magic, so some interesting things I want to talk about. So first is I took like a short hiatus from the game earlier in the year. It really was as short as you can call a hiatus. It was only like a couple months, but I didn't do anything Magic, and notably I actually took apart every deck that I had, right down to decks that I wasn't using anyway. Took apart everything. Um, I it was a combination of things. Sometimes you just don't feel like playing. I had not felt like playing for months before I actually made like a decision to like take an official break from it. And the time leading up to the actual you know end point. Some of the games that I've been in were just not great. I don't know. I feel like we were kind of getting off the rails, and I was kind of getting tired of playing, so I took a break. It was fine. It's there's nothing special to talk about, but I think it's fine to take breaks every now and then from whatever you're doing. Now, if I start to upload on this channel regularly and I want to take a break, I don't know if that means that I would, upload content but I wouldn't play, or if I would take a break from uploading content. I don't know. I don't really know what that would look like. This channel is so much in its infancy. So who knows? Maybe the others that are doing this with me would pick up the slack and kind of take over. But so I did come back sooner than I thought I would. You know, I just needed a reset. And so, as I said, I took apart every deck that I had, which was a big move. People thought that was pretty surprising. I think that's actually a useful thing to do. Taking apart decks, and maybe even taking apart every deck once in a while is useful, because maybe this is just me thinking this, but being able to separate yourself from something as precious as, like a deck. But yeah, taking apart your decks. It relates back to when you're deck building and you need to make cuts and you don't know what to take out. You should give a side eye to cards that you have particular interest in, that you like a lot. There's a phrase in writing, kill your darlings. If you have a character or a plot device or a concept that you really, really like, be suspicious of it, because you might have it there for bad reasons. Same thing is true of cards that you may need to cut. But the way it relates, taking apart decks, it's more like just taking that to a different scale. You might have a deck that you're very attached to and you've had for a long time, and you haven't really made changes to it in a long time. You've kind of done everything that the deck can do. You've kind of seen it all with that deck. Other people have seen everything that that deck can do. So the only reason you're keeping it together is for sentimental reasons. And maybe you use it once in a while, and if you get value out of it, do what you want, man. I'm not gonna tell you how to live your life, but I think that there's a lot of value to be had in deconstructing an old deck and trying new things with those parts. I think you can get a lot of mileage out of your cards if you reuse cards in new places instead of buying new cards every time you make a deck. So yeah, I took apart a lot of decks, and when I came back, I really came back by just buying a starter deck from a shop. that I went to with a friend. I just kind of tagged along, and I got I forget what the name of a Yessi or something. I'll put it on the screen, but it's the blue-green commander that it's like a sea serpent that you get an extra land drop, and then when you play a land, you draw a card, I think. It's basically like Tatiova. I bought that deck and used it at the shop and had a lot of fun with it. And so I was kind of like, okay, if people want to play, I'll play and I'll use this deck. That's fine. And then I just slowly was like, you know what, I kind of want to try some new stuff. And I made a couple new decks, and then before I knew it, I was like, okay, I'm back. Like, I want to play more, and I made a bunch of new decks. And I also remade a couple of old decks, like Drakuseth, for example, was a deck that I took apart, but I really enjoyed it. I think it's a simple deck. It's mono red dragons, and I'm not going to do a lot of other things with those dragons if I don't put them in that deck. So it just seemed like a natural thing to just rebuild that deck. It's also really good for handing to a newer player. If we have a group of people, both new and veteran, I can hand that to a newer player, and they'll be able to execute it. Like a first time player could theoretically use that deck. So I also wanted to talk about what Magic means to me, and that sounds so corny and wishy-washy and like saccharine, but I'm just talking, right? So I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of touch on that, and particularly how it compares to Yu-Gi-Oh, which is what I was playing for a long time before Magic. Me and my friend group, we were all playing Yu-Gi-Oh, and I have a lot of the friends that I have today because of that game. And that makes sense. It's a social game. You can meet people through it. Oh, so and so plays. Oh, I gotta verse them. And you get together and you have matches, and then through that common interest, you forge friendships, and it keeps people together. It's a reason to get together. It's a reason to hang out. And I was thinking about this the other day. I was out to dinner with friends, and we were talking about how my good friend John, we met through work, and after we had both left that company, we still stayed in touch and stayed in touch. Okay, we stayed in touch, and are still good friends to this day. And good reason for that was because of Magic. So these games, just naturally have a tendency of expanding your circle of friends. Plenty of games are great like that. So it's not specific to these games, or to Magic. But yeah, it's great that that's there. And if I have kids someday, I would absolutely encourage them to play social games like it. It doesn't have to be Magic, of course, but just games in general that encourage you to play with friends. I think it's very, very healthy. Different people play the game for different reasons, obviously. I've been watching a lot of content about, obviously, Commander, because, that's what this channel is focused on. It's what I'm focused on. But also things like the Pro Tour. I've been watching a lot of Nikachu's content. Really cool channel. I'll try to provide a link in the description. Really cool content creator. I don't know if he even touches on Commander. I don't know that he does, but I watch his videos on like Pro Tour and just other Magic related stuff. And he does like, occasionally he'll do videos on cheaters that were caught in professional Magic. It's crazy to think about because, like, sure, people are different. Some people, like, that's just in their programming that, they don't find cheating offensive. or they find it justified, or they'll make the excuse because it's the Pro Tour, so it's like a lot is on the line, so it's just like a tactical maneuver. Everyone's doing it, quote, so you might be able to justify that, but you know it's a totally different thing from casual Magic. Like, what is the point in cheating in a casual game when there's nothing on the line, and this is your friends? So I mean, I don't know any cheaters as far as I can tell. I really trust all my friends, and I don't worry about that sort of thing. But it just, I guess what I'm getting at is people playing the game for different reasons. You're in the Pro Tour, but you're there because you really want to play Magic and you want to do it professionally. So you still presumably love the game. If you didn't enjoy the game, you wouldn't be there. So how could you be there enjoying the game and also cheating? It's like the most heinous thing. Like, you know, part of being a professional player is that you know the rules, you know the mechanics, and you know how to navigate those waters. So cheating is like saying, I know the rules and I'm not going to follow them. It's almost like not bothering to learn how the stack works, you know? Although, arguably, no one knows how the stack works. I know this video is probably going all over the place. I'm jumping around a lot. I only had a couple of talking points that I really wanted to go through. So I'm a little bit all over the place, but you know what? If this gets online, that's a victory for me, and that's really the only thing I'm concerned about. As well as providing some interesting content to listen to. I wouldn't put this up if I thought it wasn't engaging or interesting. If you're listening to this, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. That is so cool of you, whoever you are, whether it be a friend or just a stranger that stumbled on this video. You are super cool. So thank you for that. The last thing I did want to talk about is the health of the game as a whole, especially as compared to Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is, as I've said, the game that I came from. I played Yu-Gi-Oh! From junior high through college. And then, so I've been there pretty much since the beginning, and dropped out around the time of Pendulums. Friends of mine kind of picked it up recently when Link Summoning was kind of, already well established, and we tried to fiddle with that, and we saw how poorly the health of the game had tanked. How aggressively they power crept the game. The newer cards blow the older cards out of the water. Even just cards that are, a couple years old. I'm not talking about stuff from the beginning sets. Obviously, there's power creep. But the power creep had ramped up, enormously. And it's unfortunate because, sure, it's a business. Konami and Wizards of the Coast, I think it's, what the hell is Wizards' parent company? I think it's, Hasbro. Konami and Hasbro have to make money. No doubt there. No one could blame them for doing that. But they have a customer base. They have a base of people that, spend their money on the game, come back time and time again. And I would think you have an obligation to those people to provide them a product that will last. It's like that's like if you're a Subaru owner and you buy new, you even do like the trade-in programs, and you re-up. You're hard into Subaru, and you're at that dealer, every couple months, whatever. Subaru should take care of you. You are a paying customer. You are there for life. If Subaru just kind of like takes advantage of that and starts putting out shit cars, because hey, you're there, you're gonna buy the car anyway, so we don't have to try as hard. That's awful. That's I think that's morally bankrupt. Or as far as business consumer relations go. Yu-Gi-Oh's health has dropped because of power creep. Why does power creep happen? Power creep happens because you need to market your new set. And the only way to, presumably, or at least the way that they do it, the only way they can push that new set, the only way you could do that is if it has juicy chase cards. You know, every set has had them where it's like, oh man, I'm going to buy a box in hopes to get X, I remember when it was Dark Arm Dragon. That was like the power card in the set, and people were buying boxes of it. As I've been watching the Progression series by Simo for Yu-Gi-Oh, where him and a friend go set by set. They crack a box in a virtual space. Whatever they pull, they can use those in their collection, and they augment their decks, and they verse each other. And you see the progression of the meta through the years of the game. And what I've learned more and more is that so much of the cards that Yu-Gi-Oh has produced are completely worthless. You would maybe like 10% of their consumers would actually use those cards, like, new players making janky whatever decks. But most of the cards are just not usable, and they're not meant to be. Contrast that with Magic. You buy a box, and sure, there's some really high value stuff in that box, sought after cards in that box. But I guarantee there's also going to be really nice rares and uncommons and even commons that people will use in their collections or can sell for some value. Now, sure, there's a lot of chaff. There's a lot of commons and uncommons and sometimes even higher that you kind of can't use. Like, they're just weird niche designs and they're not as usable. But those are far and few between. And the chaff, that actually is the meat and potatoes of limited play. You're doing draft or you're doing sealed, and all of these commons, these commons that are not spectacular in performance, you'll use them in draft and limited play. Sometimes you just need a 2/2 zombie. Sometimes you just need a removal spell. And so those cards, even though you're not, using them in your collection going forward, probably, you'll use it in draft. And that by itself is a product, is a game, has value, So even if all you really did was go to a local game store and participate in drafts and stuff and sealed events, all of those cards help to provide that experience. You can't do that in Yu-Gi-Oh! In Yu-Gi-Oh! There's nothing but limited, forbidden, and advanced. There's only those two formats. There's nothing else to do with the cards. I mean, people have been creative and had made formats for Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's amazing. Like, kudos to the player base for being inventive like that. But that's not Konami to thank for that. The player base made those formats despite Konami doing nothing to create a diverse, larger game. So, if Yu-Gi-Oh! Has those two formats, what does Magic have? Magic has draft and sealed. It has standard, 2 years of most recent sets, modern, pioneer, legacy, vintage, commander, and then not to mention all the other formats that people have come up with, like Tiny Leaders and Oathbreaker. So, and all of these formats are very distinct in like what the gameplay is like and what the power level is. It's incredible. I love it. So to bring it back to the health of the game, right? It's fantastic that there hasn't been as much power creep in Magic because they have all these different formats. I mean, they can afford to have all these lower power cards that are useful in these other formats, and occasionally they'll splash in some powerhouses that you can use in your eternal formats. You know, your Commander, your Legacy, your Modern. You can use those cards there. You know, but it's not just the fact that there's different formats in the game. It's the fact that you have so much more design space. Now, there's nothing that Yu-Gi-Oh! Can really do about this because the rules of the game are the rules of the game. The way that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has kind of addressed design space is that they just make new card types. They make new ways to summon monsters. So, like, it was originally just fusion monsters that were, like, the standout card type. I guess fusion and ritual. And then in 5Ds, there were the synchros. And then Zexal came the Xyz monsters. And then, I forget what the next one was. It was like Astral or something. Were the Link summoning... I don't know, I might be getting this wrong. So they had different ways to summon new types of monsters. And each time, it was more powerful than the last, I would argue. Which is kind of the point. It's supposed to draw your attention. It's supposed to be more powerful than last year's tech. But the way that Magic does... I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here. You guys all know this if you're Magic fans. But Magic has so much depth to its design space. You have creatures, sorceries, instants, artifacts, enchantments, planeswalkers, subtypes of all of these, you know, sagas and you have the adventure cards, you have split cards, you have dual face cards, like all of these things that work beautifully in Magic. And none of them are inherently more powerful than a standard card, but they're interesting and they have new application. So you might want to get them to try new things, but it's not going to, you know, make all the other sets beforehand obsolete. This is turning into a long enough rant to be 2 videos, but I'll wrap up. So I think that Magic is doing well. I think that it has, as far as the game itself, like if you're talking about the health of the game itself, it seems like it's doing fine. The decisions that the company is making, I'm not thrilled about a lot of it. Secret Lair for me has been kind of, you know, some good, some bad. I haven't really bought any, but I'm not judging like the individual Secret Lairs. I mean that I think that Secret Lairs are good when it's a premium version of a card that you can already get reasonably well. I don't think it's good when it's a card that you can't get easily, and then they charge a lot for it. I don't think that's helping anything. And it's at its worst when they're creating unique cards only in Secret Lair, in which case they're basically putting a paywall, you know, in front of new pieces for your game. I think that you should be able to, you know, I don't like when cards are like kept artificially high in price. So there's that. Commander has been heavily supported in the past few years, which is cool. But I just feel like, you know, they've been just pushing out so much product. I don't even keep up with it. Now maybe that's me. Maybe I'm just like not a good consumer. But I don't think we need this much content. You know, no one's... I can't say no one. People are different, and I have friends that pretty much buy all the stuff that comes out as it comes out. But not everyone can do that. We'll leave it at that. So the game itself, I think, is doing fine. There's no mechanic that has come out where I said, this is going to break Magic. Nothing can break Magic, it seems. It's got such a diverse format space and design space that it's going to be really hard to kill it. Arena, I think, is awesome, but I'm not really thrilled with the new cards that like are arena specific. I think that's a little bit weird. maybe I'll do another video on that just because I need to look at that more and you know, develop my thoughts on it. But yeah, no, I think the game's doing pretty well. I think it's gonna be here for a while, and I'm in for the long haul. Like, I want to be playing this game till I'm 90, and hopefully making content until I'm also 90. I don't know what's happening at 90. Am I gonna die?